What's up, Flannelverse? Who is ready for playing for the bye? We got the Minnesota Vikings, my Minnesota Vikings, playing against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. It will be a dome game. Two really great offenses. Should be a lot of scoring in this one. Vikings have a pretty good defense, but nobody has really been able to stop the Lions all year. Lions defense was really good at one point. They are decimated by injury. This should be close game, high scoring, a lot of fun. I couldn't be more excited about it. Also, no Monday Night Football tomorrow night. I think it's just this week. I think we actually get Monday Night Football back next week. So it's not done, but not a whole lot of these like Monday. I think we're done with Thursday for the time being, but excited to get into this one. Appreciate that, Rangers fan. I will be doing content through the Super Bowl on this channel. It's like I reserved the Showdown short slate stuff for the Flannelverse, so I'll be continuing throughout the playoffs. Hopefully, you guys will stick with me and we'll win some money in the playoffs as well. But we're going to get into this. I want to say hello to everybody in chat. Good to see many of you in here, even before I was talking stuff in the chat. So appreciate seeing all of you. Many Vikings fans. Good to see Vikings fans. If you see any, by the way, mods, if you see any Lions fans in the chat, we're just kicking them right out tonight. We're not even giving them a chance to talk trash. We're just kicking them right out. No, I'm kidding. Everybody welcome here. Everybody welcome here. We are going to start with quarterbacks. We're going to go through running backs, receivers, tight ends, defenses, kickers. In the end, I will play around with some lineups. I will take any extra questions that we didn't get to as we go. Do want to remind you, if you are not already subscribed to the channel, would appreciate trying to get to 5,000 still by the end of the NFL season. Of course, it's going to be tougher now with fewer games going forward. Don't have that much longer to get to 5,000. Still have 750-ish to go. So would appreciate it if you would show some support, subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you do, then you'll know whenever I go live, especially if you hit the notification button. But even if you don't, you'll hopefully see me live whenever you come on YouTube. And I'll be doing a lot of content, of course, for all the short slates that we have coming up. Probably start doing some NBA content. I'll be doing some, I know that I will, for pick'ems and stuff. But best ball, probably do some playoff best ball this week. A lot of stuff coming up. So please do show some support and subscribe to the channel. All right, we're going to start with the quarterbacks as usual. Jared Goff getting 8% projected ownership in the captain spot. Sam Darnold getting 12% projected ownership in the captain spot. No real issue with it. I mean, Goff at 8% looks pretty good. I don't usually love playing quarterbacks in the captain spot. Like, it's not my first, like, my preference would be to play generally receivers or running backs or tight ends, I guess, position players in the captain spot most of the time. But these quarterbacks can put up a lot of fantasy points, and the ownership not really out of hand. My guess would be I'm going to be a little bit underweight on Sam Darnold at 12%. 8% Goff seems about right. No real issue with the captain ownership on the quarterbacks. This is a slate where the quarterbacks are going to look great. One thing I think we're going to run into with this slate is the pricing is really tough. Like, this is one where the top projected plays are pretty expensive, and you're probably going to want a few of the top projected plays in your lineup. So it's a little bit tough to save salary on this one. I think I'm probably not going to require more than like $400 off. So like 49.6 might be my salary cap, something like that. And sometimes I'll go 48.4. I'll go pretty low on the salary cap. I think it's going to be tough on this one to leave that much salary on the table. And it's going to be tough to fit all of the players that we want to fit. So that's going to be one of the considerations here. Rez, I go over FanDuel just briefly. So I'll go position by position, and I'll look at DraftKings pricing as we go. But I'm also going to be talking about like usage trends and matchup data for every player as I go through DraftKings. So like most of what I'm talking about as I go position by position is applicable to both DraftKings and FanDuel. But I'll be looking at as we go projected ownership and pricing on DraftKings. Once I'm done position by position on DraftKings, I'm just going to go quickly over FanDuel. So we'll flip over to FanDuel, just see like what kind of stands out from a pricing and ownership standpoint on FanDuel. So it's more of a DraftKings focus show, but I will go over FanDuel briefly after I've gone through position by position. Slim Zay Sports asks, is Khalif Raymond playing? And that is a good question. Probably somebody in chat can already tell me who the inactives are, but I'm just gonna double check the inactives before we get going. I always want to have those. I saw that what's his name, the back Craig Reynolds is playing. I know that I saw that, but I have not checked closely. Doesn't look like there's any inactives that I was planning on playing on the Lions side. So yeah, I believe Khalif Raymond is back. He didn't need to be called up or anything as far as I know. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe Khalif Raymond is active for this game. We can play some Khalif Raymond. Yeah, okay. Everybody's saying Khalif Raymond is active. That's kind of fun. But not that he had a huge role anyway before he got hurt. We'll get into that once we get to receivers, but I will just continue talking about quarterbacks for now. Okay. Yeah, he is the min price. So definitely, I think he's my favorite min price player, or he or Sion Vaki, probably my favorite min price players, and that's important on this slate. As we're talking about the pricing, I do think like we saw a slate, I don't know, a few weeks back where we had two players in the optimal who combined for like 4 fantasy points because they were so cheap and they allowed you to get whoever you wanted else in your lineup. I fear that this one could be that type of slate. I'm hopeful that that's not going to be the case, but I am a little bit concerned about that. So the min price guys, figuring out who is the best min price guy is actually kind of important on this slate, unfortunately. So good to know that we have Khalif Raymond as an option. He's definitely up there as far as my favorite min price guys go. Jamon asks, how do we feel about double kicker and flex? I think that's totally viable. If you want to play double kicker in flex, this should be a high scoring game, but it's going to be hard to fit. Like there might be a 20 fantasy point player, there might be a 25 fantasy point player in this game that cannot fit in the winning lineup because there are too many good players. Like this could be that type of game where there's such high scoring players that like, yeah, sure. Amon-Ra St. Brown scored 25, but he was outscored by Jahmyr Gibbs and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison or Jared Goff, whatever. There's so many with huge potential that we probably won't be able to play all of them. So then you're going to get into like 12 points out of a kicker might be what you need, or 12 points each out of the might be what you need. So I do think that, yeah, definitely viable to play double kicker in the flex. And also appreciate your super chat, Jamon. Always appreciate the super chats. Okay. In the flex, so this is the point that I was getting to. At captain, I think both quarterbacks like seem fine at their ownership. Sam Darnold, 46%. In a vacuum, that looks okay to me. Jared Goff, 41%. Again, in a vacuum, that looks okay to me. I do think I probably come in slightly underweight on both of them just because I want to be playing more of Justin Jefferson in particular. He's only getting 34% ownership. Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like I think my two favorite plays are going to be the two top end wide receivers. And then I like, kind of some of these mid-range guys also. So I think ultimately I probably end up slightly underweight to both Jared Goff and Sam Darnold. But I think that they're objectively good plays. Like if they fit in your lineup, both are studs. My note, Sam Darnold, Vikings offense ranked 6th in neutral pass rate over the last 5 weeks. So they've been throwing it a ton recently. Darnold scoring 23 fantasy points per game over the past 5 weeks. And the Lions defense has allowed the most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to quarterbacks over the past 5 weeks. So the matchup is fantastic. I mean, look at this. 11.8 fantasy points over expectation to quarterbacks over the past 5 weeks by the Detroit defense. So it's a fantastic matchup for Sam Darnold. They've been throwing a lot. He's been scoring a lot of fantasy points. It's in a dome. Like everything looks awesome here for Sam Darnold. So I don't want to be like, if I could get to what the field is getting to, I will. I suspect because I'm going to be forcing my way to more Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I suspect that I will be slightly under the field to Sam Darnold and Jared Goff. I had a computer issue for a second. My computer froze up and I was not able to get to my screen. So that was almost panicked there for a second, but we can continue on. As far as the stacking goes for the quarterbacks, I am always requiring a stacking partner for either of them. If I have either of them in the captain spot, I want to have multiple stacking partners, at least two. I think for actually both, you can include the running backs, either Jahmyr Gibbs or Aaron Jones. Actually, you could even include Sion Vaki, because he is the 2-minute drive running back for the Lions, which means like if he's scoring fantasy points in the 2-minute drive, it's probably via reception. So I think you could actually include Vaki as a potential stacking partner also. But regardless, if I have Jared Goff in the captain spot, I want to have at least two pass catchers in the flex. That would be any wide receiver, tight end, or either of those two running backs. I think both qualify. And then same thing for Sam Darnold. If I have him in the captain spot, I want to have two pass catchers, at least two pass catchers in the flex, and that could include any wide receiver, tight end, or Aaron Jones. I would include there as well. Yeah, I think that's good enough analysis of the quarterbacks. We don't really need to. Oh, I didn't read off my note on Jared Goff. I guess the Lions rank 25th in neutral pass rate over the last 5 weeks, so not throwing it nearly as much as the Vikings in recent weeks in neutral situations. Goff still averaging 26.4 fantasy points per game over that span. So he's actually outscoring Darnold, even though they're not throwing it as much. This offense just really, really efficient. Tough matchup for Goff. The Vikings defense has allowed the 5th fewest schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to quarterbacks over the last 5 weeks. So some negatives there for Jared Goff. But again, this Lions offense has just been kind of unstoppable all year. So even as the defense is falling apart, the offense is still looking really good. So I think they're going to be able to score fantasy points even against the Vikings' really good defense. Yeah, so I think that's it for quarterbacks. Again, I think I'll probably end up slightly underweight, but I think they're both just objectively great plays. They've both been scoring a ton. This should be a really high scoring game. If I could get to both of them, I would love to. But I would guess a lot of my lineups just have to choose one of those quarterbacks so I can get to more of the receivers and such. Okay. Going to move on to running backs. And I got a question already. Do I think Minnesota can shut Gibbs down rushing? Probably not. I hope so. Maybe they can shut him down rushing. I don't think they can shut him down fantasy wise. Like he's going to score fantasy points regardless, just because he's going to have so many opportunities. He's going to have opportunities in the passing game, and he's good. So no, I don't think they can completely shut him down. I think that what you're hoping for if you fade Gibbs is that he scores 18 fantasy points or something like that and gets outscored by Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, the quarterbacks. Several other players have the possibility of outscoring him. So I do think it is viable to fade him. I don't think without an injury, I'd be pretty surprised if he doesn't score at least like 15, 16 fantasy points, because he's going to be getting just the yardage running and through the air. Always a good chance he's going to score a touchdown. So yeah, kind of depends what you mean. But I'd be sort of surprised. He's just going to have awesome volume with no David Montgomery. Lions were better against the Vikings in game 1 after Montgomery got injured, Nick says. I don't remember that specifically. What are my notes on? I guess we'll start with Jahmyr Gibbs, because he's got a great projection. You can look at captain ownership. Yeah, Gibbs base points 20.6. Project for 18.5 ownership at captain. Again, I prefer the 2 wide receiver. I prefer at least Jefferson better. And I don't think I'm just being biased here. I think Jefferson just has a great matchup, going to score more PPR points, etc. So I prefer Jefferson especially if he's going to be half the ownership of Gibbs, but I still think 18.5, like probably not going to be too far under that. I do suspect I will be under 18.5% to Gibbs in the captain spot, but it's just because we have several viable captain options and it is hard to really pay up. Got to be kind of picky and choosy with your pay up options. And I know I just said I prefer to play Jefferson, who's even more expensive, but Jefferson coming in at lower ownership. So I just rather make that bet when I am paying up. So I suspect I'll be a little bit underweight to Gibbs at captain, but he's clearly a strong option. Like he just projects really well. He's cheaper than Jefferson. Gonna have a million opportunities, so I'll be probably a little bit underweight, but I think he looks like a fairly strong play there. And then in the flex, Jahmyr Gibbs coming in at 42% ownership. I might just eat that. I think that's totally reasonable even at his price tag. The volume has been really strong. The matchup is not great. Vikings defense has allowed the sixth fewest schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to running backs over the past 5 weeks. Um, so it will be tough sledding. He's just, I think Gibbs is good enough that against any run defense, he is live to have a very big game. You can't totally. What's the I think the Shaq quote? I think you said about you can't stop me. You can only hope to contain me. I think that's kind of the situation with Gibbs. They're not going to be able to shut him down, but they can hope to contain him. Actually, let's take a look at the game log. So it's the past two games without David Montgomery. So week 16, first game without David Montgomery, he had 23 carries and 5 targets on 54.5% route participation. The next game, so this is a game that was completely meaningless last week. And we kind of anticipated that he was going to see reduced work and they were going to bring in the backups a little bit more last week. And that's exactly what we saw. 52.2% of the snaps, he had 18 carries and 4 targets. So that's 18 carries and 4 targets is a reduced workload for Gibbs in a meaningless game. There's no way that they aren't trying to give him all of the work tonight. I think it's the Gibbs show. As long as he is capable of playing, they're going to be giving him all of the work. So I'm expecting a really, really heavy workload tonight for Jahmyr Gibbs. And ultimately, so he's getting about 61% ownership. Really be slightly late on that, but again, he's a player that if he can fit in your lineup and he makes sense in your lineup, sure, he looks great. Should have a ton of work. Feel like a lot of this is pretty straightforward, but I'll continue on the running backs. I guess since we're talking about Gibbs, we should continue talking about the Detroit running backs. And I really liked both Craig Reynolds and Jamar Jefferson on the last slate. I don't love them on this slate. Again, I just think Gibbs is going to be the bell cow. Like they're going to give Gibbs every carry that he can handle. So is it possible that one of them, Gibbs runs it down, gets caught at the 1 yard line, and they have to bring in a backup because he's exhausted, and maybe Craig Reynolds scores a touchdown? Sure, that is possible. But they're both also not min priced. I just don't think they're going to have the workload. But for both of them, Craig Reynolds and Jamar Jefferson, obviously they have contingent value. I think Craig Reynolds would be the one. If I had to choose one, I think he just has the more contingent value. I think he would be the one, taking on a bigger workload if something were to happen to Gibbs. So yeah, I think viable if you want to play some of Craig Reynolds. I think that is reasonable, but again, I don't think he's really going to have much standalone value. I think you're really relying on the contingent value. So I probably wouldn't want to play Reynolds with Gibbs. I guess you could, because if you want to think like Gibbs is going to be putting up 25 project for 25, look at that projection. But he could put that up in 2 and quarters, and then if Reynolds gets the rest of the run, it is possible. But it's not one where I'm like, I really want to play these two together, because I think Craig Reynolds' value in this game is basically contingent on either an injury to Gibbs or a blowout, or it's like a fluky touchdown could happen. But yeah, I'm not super into it. I think the field is kind of, hip to it. I don't think they're going to be Craig Reynolds. I mean, he's still getting over 10%. I'll be under 10% for sure on Craig Reynolds. I'm not excited to play him, because I think this is going to be one where they just lean on the stars. This is a must-win game. Obviously, I think all of you know, right? They're playing for the bye, the 1 seed in the NFC, and the bye next week. Both teams are going all out. I think they're just going to give the ball to their stars as much as possible, and I don't think the backups really get in there that much. But again, if I were to play one of them, it would be Craig Reynolds. I mean, projecting Jamar Jefferson for 0 ownership, so I guess that's the case for him. He would probably also see some run if something were to happen to Jahmyr Gibbs. But I think Craig Reynolds probably become the lead back if something were to happen to Gibbs. So he would be my preference. Again, I think I'd probably come in under 10%. The rare backup running back that I don't, fall in love with and want to play above the field. So maybe this is the one where Gibbs is hurt first quarter, and it's going to be the Craig Reynolds show. But I'm not playing for that. Okay, I think that's it for. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention Sion Vaki. So if I'm playing a running back on Detroit, Sion Vaki probably will be my highest owned running back outside of Jahmyr Gibbs, and the field has it that way too. 13% projected ownership. Again, I think saving that salary, getting that min price player, really can be important on a slate like this, where all the players are priced appropriately. Like they're priced up, but they should be priced up. You want to get a lot of those guys into your lineup. So finding the right min priced player is pretty important. And I think Sion Vaki is as good a bet as anybody. He is either my favorite or my second favorite. It's between him and Khalif Raymond, I think, for me. And I should pull up my Coach Speak Index. But I mean, I can tell you the gist of what was said in the Coach Speak Index, which is he is their 2-minute guy. So this is the quote from Ben Johnson on the 27th of December, so just like a week ago, said, with David Montgomery out, I would anticipate a similar backfield rotation going forward like we saw last week. Reps in the 40 range for Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamar Jefferson, and Craig Reynolds coming in to spell Gibbs for a bit, and then Sion Vaki for the 2-minute drive, which that's one of those, like, a lot of the time it's going to be a 0 for him. I think last week Sion Vaki was a 0, didn't really see it, but in situations where the 2-minute drive comes into play, like he could just rack up like 3 or 4 receptions on one drive. Sometimes you see stuff like that in the 2-minute drive. So I do think he would be my favorite because, again, he's min priced, so you don't need that much. If he has one catch that could separate him from the rest of the min price players, like that might be all you need. Chase says Reynolds ended up playing the 2-minute drive last week. That is a good note. Yeah, I don't know. It's they say he's going to be the 2-minute drive. I think, last week was sort of a weird one because they didn't have anything to play for. They were trying to get those guys in, but that is a good note from Chase. I don't know. I think just the price is such that with Reynolds, you definitely need him to score. You need him to put up fantasy points. Whereas Sion Vaki, like, because he's min priced, like that might be enough to get you to the optimal lineup, even if he does literally 0, as we've seen a few times. So I don't know. I prefer Vaki, but that is a good note that he didn't end up playing the role that the coaches said he was going to play last week. Yeah. Matt says, even though Minnesota defense is 3rd in yards per rush, they're weaker versus zone runs than man gap runs, and Gibbs' strength is zone runs. 60% of rushes are zone. I don't know. I think that he's going to be able to put up some fantasy points. I think it's still a tough matchup for Gibbs, regardless of how you break it down. Like, running backs have just not had a ton of success against the Vikings, just, based on like actual fantasy points scored relative to what you would expect for those specific running backs. Okay. All right, on to the Vikings running backs. So Aaron Jones, I mean, obviously the best back, but he's still projected for here. It's a 7-point gap between Aaron Jones and it's a 5-point gap at Roto-Grinders between Jahmyr Gibbs and Aaron Jones. At fantasy points, it's even bigger. It's a 10-point gap between the projections for Jahmyr Gibbs and Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is cheaper, 8,400 to Gibbs's 11,600. So there's a $3,200 difference there. Let's pull up the matchup here. And actually, I'll just get back to my notes on Aaron Jones. And again, the Vikings have been throwing it a lot, whereas the Lions have continued to run a lot. So there's a lot going for Gibbs that is not going for Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones over the past 5 weeks, 66 carries and 18 targets. So like under 4 targets per game, but more than 3 per game. 66 carries. So not a ton. Lions defense has been actually, a fairly good spot for running backs. Lions defense allowed the 12th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to running backs over the past 5 weeks. I don't know. Jones seems okay to me, but he's fairly expensive, and I think that we have some players that are a little bit cheaper that are going to look better to me than Jones. I think he's fine. Again, Detroit's been beatable via the run in recent weeks. The ownership for Jones coming in at 28%, and then at captain 5.5%. I don't know. I'm not. I wish I could be more enthusiastic about playing Aaron Jones. I think those are fine numbers. I think I'd probably come in slightly underweight just because he is priced a little bit more than some other players that I think are more enticing here. So I think ultimately I probably come in a little bit underweight to Aaron Jones. Like these are sort of enticing projected ownerships. Aaron Jones at 5.5% of captain. Like there are some matchups where I would be in love with that. I would 5.5% seems too low for the starting running back against a not amazing defense. I think I'm probably matching the field. I might come in slightly overweight to 5.5% and then just cut this down to like 15-20% in the flex. Definitely not a full fade situation because Jones could just he could score the 2 touchdowns. We can get pass interference in the end zone and it's on the 1-yard line and Jones probably gets the first crack at it. So I don't want to undersell it. Like it's a nice spot. Detroit's been beatable against the run, but he's expensive enough and he's not my biggest priority in this game. I think I'll probably be a bit underweight to Aaron Jones. Just hasn't really had the opportunities. Yeah, I don't know. I think I end up just a little bit underweight to Aaron Jones and the Vikings run game in general. I think I'm going to be not playing a ton. We don't have ownership here. All right. Cam Akers, 16%. Again, I think probably that's mostly just contingent value. I don't know. The Vikings they've worked Cam Akers in a bit more. So maybe I'm underselling it slightly. But in a must-win game, I still think they're probably going to lean on Aaron Jones. I don't know, six carries last week, 3 targets on 18% route participation. Not a ton, like 0 targets over the past 4 games before that for Cam Akers. 16% feels a little bit low. Like I think I'd rather take my shots on the cheaper players or the, like we're talking about multiple kickers or the tight ends are like kind of mid-range. Cam Akers is just kind of, I don't think I'll be that much underweight to this, but I think I'll be a little bit underweight to 16% Cam Akers. There's just other players that I prefer a little bit over Cam Akers. But looks fine. And then I don't think I'm going to go to CJ or anything. CJ Ham. He's 400. Ty Chandler, Ty Chandler. What a letdown this year. Probably not going to any Ty Chandler. Hard to make a case for Ty Chandler. Just they clearly don't like him. They prefer Cam Akers. So he's like, what would it take for Cam Akers to get much run? I don't know what it would take. I'm trying to find CJ Ham's ownership. I'm not finding him. Regardless, 400. I'm not enthusiastic about any of the Vikings running backs. If I'm being honest, I think Aaron Jones looks pretty good, but I'll probably still be a bit underweight there. I guess that's it for the running backs, right? We've talked about all of the running backs. I'm more into the passing games in general on this slate. Chris, yes, easier to run on the Lions or the Vikings. It's been the Lions are easier to run on in recent weeks. Early in the year, it was the Lions were the toughest team to run on in the league, but their entire defense is decimated with injury. So they've actually been, where are they? A slightly above average matchup over the past 5 weeks. We can see here, it's actually, they're giving up more via the pass, which is kind of interesting. Two running backs. They're giving up fewer fantasy points than expected via the rush to running backs and then more via the pass, which Aaron Jones is a capable pass catcher, but also not like, he's not used like a Gibbs. 4 targets, 5 targets, 3 targets, 2. I mean, he'll see a handful of targets. So yeah, Lions are more beatable via the run, but Aaron Jones the Vikings have just been throwing it more than they've been running it. So again, I'm including Aaron Jones as a possible stacking partner in my Sam Darnold captain stacks, but I don't know, not super involved in the passing game. Like he's kind of mid-range, I guess, as far as a running back being involved in the passing game. Okay. I think that's it for running backs. Let's move on and talk about some wide receivers. Get into the fun part here with the wide receivers. All right. Yeah. That says, just want to share the data since Minnesota's average versus zone runs all year and Gibbs shreds it like Henry. Set up almost identical to Henry versus Pitt because Pitt struggles versus zone runs. No, I mean it's good note. I appreciate you sharing that nugget, Matt. that is worth talking about. It's just one of those where it's like it's already like he just looks good. He's going to have such good volume, so it's worth noting. Like it's a tough matchup overall, but maybe he's better for this situation than the typical running back. I think he's better for most situations than the typical running back. But yeah, no, that's a good note. All right, I'm going to move on to wide receivers, where the fun really gets started with my guy Justin Jefferson, best receiver in the NFL. He's ready to take the 1 seed tonight, projecting 4 fantasy points better than Amon-Ra St. Brown at fantasy points. Love to see that. At Roto Grinders, Justin Jefferson 22, Amon-Ra, so 3 fantasy points better at Roto Grinders, and getting just 10% ownership at captain. In the flex, Justin Jefferson getting 34% ownership. Yes, it is true. I'm a Vikings fan. Maybe my homerism is having an impact here, but I'm loading up. I'm going to be over the field, both spots on Justin Jefferson. He'll be in 55, 60% of my lineups overall. I'll probably get to 20% in the captain spot for Justin Jefferson. I'll be overweight to the field in the flex. Everything just looks awesome for Justin Jefferson. I mean, look at the matchup here. It's the third best over the past 5 weeks, third best matchup for wide receivers against Detroit. Now, of course, Detroit is the 4th best. This is why we're loving the passing games here. The matchups are great. It's a dome game. They should be able to just throw all day. Detroit's defense is decimated. Yeah, Justin Jefferson is the guy tonight. I'm going to be playing a ton of. Yeah, Steven says Neil is playing 120. That's the goal. That's the goal. I should just lock him in. Really, love me some Jefferson tonight. The matchup is great. The dome is great. The passing in neutral situations, they're passing it all the time. Jefferson looks amazing. I'm loading up. That's my guy tonight. Addison. Somebody just asked about Addison. Yeah, Addison also looks great. Addison only 7,400. So again, tough to fit all of the highest price players into your lineup. I think Addison looks pretty great at 30.5% ownership in the flex. At captain, 6% going to Addison. All right, so wait. Aaron Jones is 12.6. Addison is 11.1 at captain, and they're getting Addison just a little bit more ownership. I was trying to decide who I would prefer in one lineup. If I were playing one lineup and I want to have one of those two at captain, who would be my preference? I think it's probably Addison. Like, I think that the Vikings passing game, honestly, both passing games just look fantastic here. So I think that would be Addison if I had to choose one of those two. But I don't think I'm going to go way overweight, but maybe I'll get to 10% Addison at captain, something like that. I think he looks like a really strong play also. Again, and I'm going to say this about a lot of receivers because I'm leaning into the passing games here. I think in this dome game with these offenses, they're just going to be able to put up a lot of points through the air. And then we have Jalen Naylor, who is 4,400. More of a like real possibility of a 0 for Jalen Naylor. I mean, or at least like a sub 5 fantasy points for Jalen Naylor. He's 4,400, so he's kind of too expensive if I'm being honest. But only getting 7% ownership. I like him as a contrarian play. Not somebody that I want to have in 50% of my lineups, but I do think I want to have Jalen Naylor in maybe 15% of my lineups. Like he's cheap enough. He's capable of splash plays. They should be able to score a lot of fantasy points here. It's in the dome. Jalen Naylor went off last week. That's right. Yeah, I think he's a strong bet at 6.5%. If he were getting 20% ownership, I'd say the field is crazy. I'm going to be underweight to that. So I'm not just being a homer here. It's just a 4,400. He's the wide receiver 3 on the team, projected for 6.5% ownership in a dome on a team that likes to pass a lot. He is a very capable of splash plays player. His nickname Speedy Naylor. So I'll be overweight to the field there. I'll probably get to, again, 15% or something like that. I think is a reasonable number when the field is this low, just to try to kind of play different than what the field is doing. I think that he's a good bet to play overweight to the field. I like him. And then outside of Naylor, I mean, Brandon Powell, he is 200. Let's take a look at the route share report for the Vikings. So last week, Jefferson 93%, Addison 91%, Hockenson 71%, Naylor 55%, and then it's down to Brandon Powell did not run any routes. We didn't have any other zero other wide receivers ran a route last week for the Vikings. Looks like we got one for Trent Sherfield probably in week 16. It's really a 3-man show for the Vikings wide receivers. So it's tough to really want to play any other receivers on the Vikings. They'd all just be dart throws where you're hoping for an injury, hoping for just a random touchdown. I guess with Brandon Powell, you can just hope like he has one catch for 10 yards, and because he's 400, that separates from the $200 players who score 0. I guess you can make that argument. But yeah, I'm not enthusiastic about any other Vikings. It's really just those big 3 receivers. But I like them all at ownership. I think they all look like really strong plays. With that said, moving on to the Lions side, I do like Amon-Ra St. Brown a lot too. So I'm not just being a homer. 12% ownership. I'm going to be overweight to that number on Amon-Ra. I don't love him to the extent that I love Jefferson because he's getting 2% more ownership than Jefferson. And I think Jefferson's in a better situation. But I still think Amon-Ra is a really strong bet at 12% ownership. I probably come in overweight to that. Maybe I'll be like right with the field on Amon-Ra. And then 40% again at flex. I think looks like a really strong play. I'd like to get to that much. I think I'm loading up on Jefferson enough that I might not be able to get to 40% Amon-Ra, but I'm going to force in at least like 30% Amon-Ra in the flex, at least 40-45% overall to Amon-Ra. I think he's a really strong play. The workload is really strong. The matchup is it's kind of interesting looking at the matchup data, the schedule adjusted for players against the Vikings, because it's a negative matchup for quarterbacks against the Vikings, and then a really positive matchup for wide receivers, and a slightly positive matchup for tight ends against the Vikings. So I don't know what to make of that, but it is basically neutral against the pass for quarterbacks. I think Amon-Ra looks like a really, really strong play. Now it's a slightly negative matchup for slot receivers, which is kind of interesting because I think Amon-Ra does run a good number of his routes from the slot. Let's take a look at that real quick. Do I have this in the right? Yeah. Okay. Just going to look. This is over the past 5 weeks. Not that I think it matters that much, because they're just going to, he runs 52% from the slot over the past 5 weeks. And it is a negative matchup for slot receivers, just barely. So it's at least worth like pointing that out, that it's not the ideal matchup for slot receivers against the Vikings. But again, I think they're just going to move Amon-Ra to where he can succeed. So I'm not extremely concerned about it. It's more, I guess, a thought of like who has the nice matchup, who of the lower owned players can we target. And actually, we didn't look at the wide receiver cornerback matchup report, and then also the coverage data. So I'll take a look at that real quick, starting with the Vikings, see if anything stands out from a micro matchups perspective. And nothing does here in the wide receiver matchup report. And then in the coverages, so the types of coverages that the Lions play. So this is a different metric for looking at the Vikings. Great coverage grade for Jalen Naylor. That's interesting. Actually, I'm going to move this to all positions. So the types of coverage that the Lions play, which looks like it's a lot of man. 47% man coverage is quite a bit. TJ Hockenson, great grade here. Jalen Naylor, really strong coverage grade. Brandon Powell, who probably won't really see much of the field. It's kind of interesting. Pretty neutral for Justin Jefferson from that perspective. But yeah, Hockenson stands out here. So we'll talk about that when we get to tight ends. And then on the Lions side, pretty like nobody has a great coverage grade. This is just the Vikings defense. I mean, this has nothing to do with the Vikings defense. It's just the types of coverage that they play. So it's kind of interesting. Sam LaPorta has a slightly above average coverage grade. Jameson Williams, slightly above average. Amon-Ra, slightly below average. Jahmyr Gibbs, etc. Tim Patrick. I don't know. These are not big enough numbers that I'm super concerned about it. But it is, I guess it's slightly positive for LaPorta, JMO. I'm not concerned about this, I guess is my takeaway. Those aren't big enough numbers to concern me, even if slightly negative for Amon-Ra. I think Amon-Ra looks good. I think I prefer Jefferson if you can only play one, but Amon-Ra also looks pretty good. Receivers out wide, it's kind of interesting. Both left and right wide receivers look good against the Vikings. Actually have really strong matchups here. So that would be JMO lines up more wide. Let's see. Yeah, still a lot of slot for JMO, but then 60% out wide. Tim Patrick lines up almost 81% out wide. I don't know. Not a huge impact there. Okay. So Amon-Ra looks okay. JMO, he's looked pretty good. Tough. I mean, he's only 7,600. He's getting 26% ownership. So again, I think I'd rather be overweight to JMO at 7,600. Probably not by a ton because it's going to be tough again, like to fit that many of these studs in there. But I think I'll probably end up 30% JMO in the flex. Or wait, what is this captain? I really like JMO in the captain spot. Like he's always boom bust. Always has the ability to. And again, I try to differentiate between splash play players and spike week players because players like JMO, like just because he does have the 60-yard touchdown in his bag of tricks, that doesn't mean he can't end up with 18 fantasy points, even on having one of those that's worth 13 fantasy points and then just having not much else. It's possible for JMO to have kind of a middling game where you don't want him at captain. So I don't want to like overstate like the nature of like, oh, I only want him at captain. But I do think he looks like a really strong captain option. Definitely capable of having a couple splash plays and just putting up 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I think he looks great. So at 6%, I like it quite a bit. Somebody, TTID, we're blocking you. We got to get you out of here. Come on. What are you talking about? Oh yeah, Hockenson revenge. Good point there. Good point. Yeah, so I think JMO, I want to be overweight. I particularly like him at captain at 6%. I do think I'd rather be overweight to JMO at 6%. But I like him in the flex also. Somebody I want to be overweight to. And then Tim Patrick. I feel like everybody. I did the expert survey for Roto Grinders earlier, and basically all of us listed Tim Patrick as our favorite contrarian play. But 10% is just a little bit too low for Tim Patrick. He has not had like an amazing role in recent weeks. Over the past 19 targets. So I think in our heads, like it feels like he's been targeted more than that. He had at least one game, I think, where he had, let me get to, am I wrong about this? I feel like he had at least one game where it seemed like he was targeted 6 times and 2 in the end zone or something like that. Let me pull it up. So I was kind of surprised to see he's been targeted under 4 times per game over the past 5 games. But I want to look at the game log. We're loading. All right. I shouldn't. Okay. Yeah, okay. So this is what happened. The past 2 weeks, 0 and 1 targets. He had 2 weeks there, 14 and 15, 7 and 8 targets. Just targeted a ton against Green Bay and Buffalo, and then down to 1, and then this is the meaningless game against San Francisco. But they were targeting the studs plenty. So I don't know what to make of that. The dip in target share for Tim Patrick. He's also one that theoretically could lose some role to Khalif Raymond. But again, if we look at, this is the route share report. So Khalif Raymond, when he was active, Tim Patrick was still, I mean, he ran 65% this week. I don't know what happened in week 12 when he was down to 38%. But it's not like Khalif Raymond was the third receiver. Tim Patrick was playing ahead of Khalif Raymond, even when Khalif Raymond was active. So I think this is what we're looking at right here. So I just wanted to note that. Like, I think Khalif Raymond maybe could cut into him a little bit. But I think Tim Patrick's still playing ahead of Khalif Raymond. I think it looks good just because, again, he's getting sub 10% ownership. If I have to choose between one of them, Tim Patrick and Jalen Naylor, I think I slightly prefer Jalen Naylor because he's just getting a bit less ownership. But I think Patrick also, I want to be above weight, I think, on 10% Tim Patrick. And then Khalif Raymond, again, I'm debating who is the best min price player. I think it comes down to probably Khalif Raymond and Sion Vaki. And Khalif Raymond coming in at 13.5% ownership. I think that's fine. I'm not like taking a major stand above that. Again, he's only been running like, I would expect him to run like 20% of the route. That's kind of what he was running before he got hurt. I think he probably comes in and does something like that. So I like him, but he's getting enough ownership that he's not like, if he were at 2%, I'd be like, yeah, load me up on some Khalif Raymond. But just the matchup, sorry, the ownership is high enough that I'm not super enthusiastic about getting way above that. I think it's more like yeah, I guess I'll try to match the field there on Khalif Raymond. Best Ball Josh, good to see you here. Best Ball Josh just took down some big best ball tournament. That was good for you. Well deserved. Okay. Continuing. So yes, I like Khalif Raymond. I think he's in the conversation of best min price play. I don't think I want to be that much over 13.5%. Yes, love to see it. The Goose in Isanti, Minnesota. I don't think I've ever been to Isanti, Minnesota, but Skol indeed. Okay. Are there any other receivers we need to talk about? I don't think so. I think that is it. I think it's just those 4 for Detroit, basically just 3 for Minnesota. You can take a dart throw in a large field tournament on Brandon Powell, but I'm not excited about it. Trent Sherfield, I guess similar to Brandon Powell, but yeah, no enthusiasm there. All right, tight end. We've got some good options at tight end, and we saw already teased a little bit the matchup for TJ Hockenson. Doesn't project nearly as well, but still looks pretty good. I'm moving along the sidebar here. Okay. Jameson Williams or Jordan Addison? That is a good question. Let me take a look at the ownership again. So Addison 30%. I think it's JMO for me. Like they're almost the same price. JMO just coming in a little bit cheaper. Man, it's tough because I like them both so much. But I think if I had to choose 6% versus 6%, yeah, I think it's JMO for me. If I had to choose one of the wide receivers there. All right, and then tight ends. Sam LaPorta projects better than so interesting here. Sam LaPorta actually projects worse than TJ Hockenson at Roto Grinders, and then pretty significantly better at fantasy points. So that is sort of surprising to me, in part because I see the matchup data for TJ Hockenson looking so good, and I feel like usually fantasy points will factor that in a little bit more than other sites like the micro data. So pretty interesting to see how big the difference is, and that it's actually more favorable to Hockenson at Roto Grinders. But we'll start with Sam LaPorta because he projects significantly better here, and it's basically a coin flip at Roto Grinders. Sam LaPorta projecting for 28.5% ownership in the flex. I think I probably come in overweight. Again, just it's you can't fit that many of these guys. So then having those price savings for Sam LaPorta, who projects pretty strongly, he's only 5,800. The roll has been really good in recent weeks for Sam LaPorta. So this is over the past 5 weeks. Sam LaPorta, 78.8% route participation, 37 targets. So more than 7 targets per game over the past 5 weeks for Sam LaPorta. Let's see the matchup. Above average, not like an amazing matchup, but it is slightly above average for tight ends against Minnesota. The coverage breakdown, he has the best coverage grade, not that much above neutral, but a lot of things look good. But the biggest thing is he's a big part of the offense, and he's the cheapest of the players that are a big part of the offense for Detroit. I'm not including Tim Patrick, obviously, in that equation. So yeah, I think Sam LaPorta looks like a strong play. I probably want to be over 28.5% in the flex for Sam LaPorta in the captain spot. It's like a lot of these look pretty good. Like I'm like, yeah, I think Yes, 6% ownership looks pretty good on LaPorta. I guess I can get rid of I'm not playing any Vaki or Cam Akers at captain, or Khalif Raymond. I don't think I'm playing any of the min price guys at captain. So I think I can afford to play more of these kind of mid range guys a little bit more, just cut all these guys out. I would like to be above weight to 6%, 5.5% Sam LaPorta captain. I think it looks like a pretty strong play at captain overall. And in the flex at 28%. So yes, again, leaning into the passing games more than the running games here. Even though again, they have not been their neutral pass rate is 25th in the NFL for the Lions, but they've been getting it done anyway. And then you have Brock Wright is, I would say, playable. He's getting 4% ownership. He actually projects fairly well. 1,600. Not super well. 1,600 projection of 3 fantasy points. Doesn't have an amazing role. Again, over the past 5 weeks, he has 2 total targets. The 24% route participation is strong. The 2 targets, not so strong for Brock Wright. I think he would be my preference if I'm going to any other tight end over Shane Zylstra. Maybe I think Shane Zylstra is min priced. Yeah, he's min priced. He might be the 3rd best min priced option, but yeah, just dart throws. No real reason to play them other than hope for a touchdown and hope that you need the salary relief for Brock Wright or Shane Zylstra, but no enthusiasm there. I do have a lot of enthusiasm for TJ Hockenson. Again, the projection TJ Hockenson is at RotoGrinders pretty similar to Sam LaPorta. He's only 5,400, so even better price savings. 26% projected ownership in the flex for TJ Hockenson. I want to be above weight to that number. I also want to be above weight to 4% in the captain spot. So I'm taking overweight stance to Sam LaPorta, but I'd rather have more TJ Hockenson than Sam LaPorta. And again, you look at the wide receiver coverage matchup, which they include tight ends here. It is a fantastic matchup for TJ Hockenson. The coverage grade, man against TJ Hockenson looks like a fantastic spot. So load up on some, or I should say, I'll be loading up on some TJ. I don't want to tell you guys what to do. You can do whatever you want, but just looking at the matchup and stuff, I'm going to be, it's again, a nice matchup in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, the coverage matchup. The usage has been good, not great, I guess, for TJ Hockenson. That is one thing that Sam LaPorta has better than TJ Hockenson. But also, again, it's not terrible. 26 targets, more than 5 per game over the past 5 weeks, 71.9% route participation. He's also been, working his way back, working his way healthy. So I would expect it to continue to progress. Sorry, I'm just going to search Hockenson here. 6 targets last week on 70.5, 4 the week before, 7 the week prior to that. Yeah, I say progress, and it's actually 8 and 9 in earlier weeks. But in the right matchup, I think that TJ Hockenson is capable of seeing 12 targets in a game. So I think that this is one where he could, not even factoring in the revenge narrative. So if you want to factor that in, looks even better. What's up, Brody? It would be Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is my favorite captain tonight. I'm also a Vikings fan. I need to acknowledge that I am in fact a Vikings fan. But yeah, it's Justin Jefferson. All right. Yeah, let's hope that Campbell does something too aggressive and has it backfire. That's the one downside to kickers on this slate. Is I'm probably playing a lot of the kickers, but it does hurt them that he'll go for it on 4th and 3 from the 30. Whereas other coaches hell yeah, we're getting some kicker points now. Johnny Munt, Josh Oliver, kind of dart throws. Neither of them has that awesome of a role. Let's take a look at last week. Johnny Munt, 2 routes, 1 target last week. Josh Oliver, 10 routes, 0 targets last week. I don't know. They're just dart throws. They're not going to have a ton of ownership. So I'll make sure to have some in a 150 set. Munt getting basically, that's captain. Sorry. Oliver getting 11% ownership. I'll probably be underweight to that. Munt getting 4%. Maybe I'll match that. I don't know. Just dart throws for largest field tournaments in a 150 set. Probably neither of them makes it into my first 20 lineups. All right, I think that does it for tight ends. So now defenses and kickers. Yep. My screen is doing weird things. I can't move my, hang on one sec. It's like part of the screen is like getting stuck on there and blocking other stuff. All right, defenses and kickers. Tough to be enthusiastic about the defenses on this slate, where it's going to be just in like the offenses are going to probably put up a ton of fantasy points, but the field's playing it that way too. I mean, actually, this is higher ownership than I would expect. 14% going to the Lions, 13% to the Vikings. It's one where it's like it's hard to envision these defenses being awesome here. I think I probably end up slightly underweight to the defenses, which probably feels like it's probably the fish decision. Like it's the most obvious thing to be like, no, I'm not playing defenses in this game. What are you talking about? But I do think I probably end up slightly underweight to the defense. I wouldn't be surprised to see some sharks like a Ricky D play like 30% of each defense or something like that. Would not be totally shocking to me. But I don't think that's the way I'm playing this one. I think I probably come in 10% each defense. I want to have some. I just it's a spot where I'm expecting a lot of scoring. So unless we see at least a touchdown, it's going to be tough, I think, for the defenses to get there. All right. But the kickers I want to play. We have Jake Bates getting 14% ownership at 5,000. Again, the downside to Jake Bates is the aggressiveness of Dan Campbell. Like, so somebody brought it up on the last show, and I was loading up on Jake Bates, and I was like, that's actually a really good point. Like the fact that they are so aggressive is hurts Jake Bates if they're going to go for it on 4th and 3, 4th and 4 instead of kicking long field goals. But they know he can kick it from anywhere on the field. He's so good when he gets those opportunities, and they still, like, it's not like they never kick, and they get into kicking position frequently enough that I still think 14% on Jake Bates, like, I'll just take that over the kickers at the same ownership. I'm going to load up more on the I'll take the kickers over the defenses. Jake Bates at 14% in particular looks awesome to me. Will Reichard 16%. I'll probably be overweight to that also. I prefer the kickers to the defenses, I guess, is my final takeaway here. Defenses are less expensive, so that is helpful. But overall, I think I'm probably going to have more of the kickers. All right, I'm going to take a brief look at FanDuel now. Just take a look at some of the ownership projections, pricing, etc. And this is, by the way, everything I'm looking at here, this is all Roto-Grinders. If you want to sign up for Roto-Grinders, and if you want $10 off, there is a link in the description of this video. So check that out if you're thinking about trying Roto-Grinders. This is the lineup HQ that I'm using right here. This is the optimizer that Roto-Grinders has. This is what I use to build my Showdown lineups. And it's a cool tool. Jesse actually showed me how to use this. All right. So at MVP, Jahmyr Gibbs getting 26% ownership on FanDuel. Sam Darnold 20%. Jared Goff 13%. It's easier for the quarterback to be optimal on FanDuel because it's just half PPR as opposed to full PPR, and there is also no salary multiplier at MVP on FanDuel. So like being more expensive, like you just need your highest scoring player to be in the MVP spot on FanDuel, whereas on DraftKings, like, doesn't necessarily the highest scoring player isn't necessarily the optimal captain, because sometimes a cheaper player can, because of the salary multiplier, can get in there instead. So just looking at this again, gonna love the top receivers here. Jefferson, Amon-Ra, both look pretty good at 10-ish% ownership. Again, Jefferson probably my favorite. I do think Jamo again looks really, really like a strong contrarian option at 3%. Just hope for 2 touchdowns, 2 long touchdowns, certainly possible. Addison 3% looks pretty good. But yeah, if I were hand building one lineup, probably Jefferson is my first MVP. Amon-Ra would be my second MVP. Gibbs I like, but the 26% ownership is enough. Like if he were getting 10% owned, he'd be right there with those guys. But because he's getting so much more ownership, I'm kind of not quite my preference. I would probably have 20% Jahmyr Gibbs if I were maxing out on FanDuel. LaPorta, Hockenson, both strong enough plays. Tough to really want to get to the kickers at MVP on FanDuel where the salary doesn't matter. But yeah, I think my preference would just be the receivers, Jefferson, Amon-Ra, and then, a little tick down to prefer JMO over Addison again at MVP. Because again, you do need the highest scoring player to be in the MVP spot. So you can't have Jefferson outscore Addison and Addison still be in the MVP spot like you can on DraftKings because of the salary multiplier. So I just prefer the studs there. And then in the flex, again, the quarterbacks look good. 38% Darnold. I'll probably be with that. 35% Goff. 31% Amon-Ra. Here Jefferson's getting lower ownership than Amon-Ra, and that kind of makes sense because he is more expensive. So it's tougher to fit him in there. So if he doesn't go completely off, it's harder to you can fit Jefferson in, but somebody's going to outscore him. So I prefer him in the MVP spot in general. 25% still seems like an appropriate amount. JMO 23%, Addison 24%. Jake Bates again looks pretty strong at 15% ownership on FanDuel. Easier for him to get there because the receiving players don't get don't get a full point per reception. They only get half a point. So it's easier for a kicker to outscore them, and he's a little bit cheaper. Khalif Raymond is 5,000, so that kind of stands out, getting 7.5% ownership. So here he's actually cheaper than Sion Vaki, who's 6,000, getting 7% ownership. So I guess on FanDuel, I would break the tie to Khalif Raymond for the salary savings. Jalen Naylor, 6% ownership at 8,000. I think that's a pretty good bet. Tim Patrick, 7% at 8,000. Oh, same price here. Tim Patrick and Jalen Naylor. Naylor getting lower ownership than Tim Patrick here. I think I prefer Naylor. Do you have any other questions on FanDuel before I get to making some lineups? I don't think so. I don't think I see any FanDuel questions. So I'm going to move back, make some lineups, and then I'm going to go make my lineups once I'm done. All right, we'll take a look. Let's play around with some lineups here. So again, Jefferson, my favorite captain. We're going to find out just how hard it is to build with Jefferson captain right now. I think the easiest way to build then is how can we save some salary? Don't know that it's tough to go all the way down. So I don't think that I'm going to be going down 200. I think I'd be more inclined to go to, could we go double tight end and a kicker or Jalen Naylor? Probably not Naylor because I have just Jefferson captain. Be less inclined to go there. So maybe I'll go Bates. Now I have Jefferson and Hockenson. Now if I want to play, do I want to play Darnold? Probably not. This is tough. Guess I could go double kicker, and then instead of playing Darnold, play Amon-Ra or Gibbs. I'm going to play Gibbs here. I'm leaving 300 on the table. This one probably gets duped. Double tight end, double kicker, Jefferson Gibbs. It's probably going to be duped a good amount. If I move off of Gibbs to Amon-Ra, this would be duped less for sure. Like this one probably wouldn't be duped all that much. Leaves 1,300 on the table. None of the quarterbacks in here. I don't think that there are any the obvious upgrade would be Gibbs over Amon-Ra, but it's definitely plausible for Amon-Ra to outscore Gibbs. Yeah, I think this looks pretty good. Looks like a strong GPP lineup. What else could I do here? Should I try a JMO captain? JMO captain saves a lot of salary. Now, what if I go down to the receivers? What if I go to Tim Patrick instead? I prefer Naylor, so why not just go to Naylor at lower ownership? Now I have fairly low owned captain, fairly low owned flex play already, so I don't need to go all out on all of the low owned plays. I can play a little bit chalkier from here. Now it gets tougher with the salary, so I can go. I mean, Addison, need one more. I mean, I don't think Jones gets me to two of the. No, he doesn't. Yeah, so we got to go cheaper than Jones. Maybe LaPorta for this one. And then now I can play Goff and Amon-Ra. Leaves 800 on the table. So now this one, in this lineup, I need Amon-Ra to outscore Jefferson because I could have fit Jefferson into this lineup. The one thing that I don't like about this lineup, not the one thing necessarily, is I've got Jamo in the captain spot as a receiver, and then I have two other receivers in the flex. So then it's like, would Goff just outscore them in this situation? But I don't think I could afford Goff at MVP in this one anyway. No, I think this works. I think this is a good lineup. It'll be tough for people to pivot off of Jefferson in this lineup onto Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would be concerned about putting Jefferson in this lineup just because I think it would be super high owned. If I did that, like that would be duped using the full salary, and also 3 Minnesota receivers without the quarterback just becomes a little bit. I don't love that quite as much. So I think this looks like a pretty strong large field GPP lineup. All right. I think that's going to do. I'll check in on questions one more time, and then I got to get to making some lineups. All right. Let's see. Mr. England, show us a cash line. I don't play cash for Showdown, so I don't even want to try making a cash line. I just use an optimizer probably if I did. All right, I got to go make my lineups. Thanks for the reminder, Steven. Good reminder. People always tell me you got to go make your lineups. You are right. I need to go make my lineups. Appreciate all of you hanging out with me while I did the show. I'll be back next week sometime. No Monday Night Football tomorrow, but I will be back. Let's get a big W tonight for the Vikings. Let's get some big W's in DFS tonight. Yes. Sorry, Nick. Yes, I would consider that. Removing St. Brown for Darnold. That would definitely work also for large field GPPs. All right, I'm out of here. Thanks, guys. Good luck tonight. Go Vikings. Skol.